Good evening and welcome to the TUSD Community Forum to meet the final candidate for TUSD Superintendent, Dr. H.T. Sanchez. Let's give him a warm Tucson welcome. My name is Larry Aldrich. I've been a longtime member of this community. It's my honor and my pleasure to moderate tonight's discussion. There are folks moving around with yellow forms, so if you have questions, just continue to pass them up. I will try to move through these as quickly as we can so most of the questions get answered. And we will start with a couple-minute overview from Dr. Sanchez. He's asked us to call him HT, so I will try to remember to do that. And we'll also have a closing opportunity at the end of the program. We'll finish right at 9, and we will try to move this along very sprightly. But I'd like to give a brief introduction of HT. As many of you know, HT is the interim superintendent for the Ector County Independent School District. He's responsible for the oversight, coordination, and management of the district's executive leadership team. He's worked in public education for 15 years. He's been an elementary, middle, and high school principal, and we have much in common. I've raised an elementary, middle, and high school student, so it's about my limit of combinations there. He has served in the ESL department of his school districts, including the Tyler Independent School District. He's also been responsible for accountability, special populations, and prior to being interim superintendent, he was chief of staff for Ector County. He has contributed mightily to the field. He teaches at universities, including Texas A&M University Commerce School, where he has a PhD, Master of Education from the Sul Ross State University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Angelo State University. So let's again give Dr. Sanchez a welcome. So again, if you have any questions, put them on the forms. We'll get them up here. I will try my best to cover all of them. I will try to combine as much as we can so we can cover a number of different topic areas. And we expect this to be a robust and open forum. So we look forward to hearing the answers to your questions. So HT, if you would just kind of give an overview to start us going.
Well, I guess it's not going to come off, and so I don't want to have the first image of this guy struggling to take the microphone off the stand. But the reason I was trying to take the microphone off the stand, because if I'm sitting where you're sitting, it looks like I have a red nose. So, okay, I'll let her do it. But I'll tell you, it's an honor and a privilege to be here tonight, and I look forward to answering your questions. I know that you probably have many. I'll just tell you just real briefly a little bit about me. And I was looking around to see if my wife and daughter made it in, but I suppose they're still looking around, and hopefully they're not lost like I got yesterday. But I did know that if I followed the signs that said to the airport, I'd find my hotel being the La Quinta, so kind of a no-frills kind of guy. But truly, it's an honor and a privilege to be here to be able to address your questions. And with my resume having been read, that really is who I am professionally. But personally, you know, I would have to say that my greatest accomplishment was getting a very beautiful woman to agree to marry me. And I wish she were here. And my second greatest accomplishment, I would have to say, would be our daughter and our son. You know, I am very passionate about education, and I do want to focus on your questions, but I will say this. I truly believe that education is the civil right of the 21st century. It's not about equal access. We have that. But it's about equitable outcome. And when we take a look at the nation, we have to ask ourselves, are students meeting their full potential? Is the outcome what it needs to be? That doesn't mean it's equal. It doesn't mean that everybody has the same outcome. It has to be very particular to students. And so the challenge we face is, if education is the contemporary civil right of the 21st century, and we're focused on equitable outcome, and you have 51,000 students, how do you do that? And the answer is very simple. It begins here, and with me, and with you. It's not anything that can ever be done alone. It's something that has to be done together, with very open communication and the desire and willingness to accept criticism, as well as to celebrate success. So with that, I look forward to answering your questions, and so I'll turn it over to our very honored moderator.
Thank you very much. And I've been asked by the board to apologize that we do not have translation services tonight. Very sorry that we do not have that for you. Also, if you would just take a moment, check your cell phone, put it on mute, put it on silent. If you get a call during the forum, please take that outside. And I immediately checked mine again because last time I heard a moderator say that, their phone went off about 5 minutes after the request. So I believe mine is off. Moderated privilege. My son is a special needs teacher in the Chandler Unified School District in the Phoenix area, and there are a number of questions about special needs. So you have the background in special needs. Will you talk about your philosophy around special needs and what can be done to provide, especially a little more one-on-one time for some of those very needy students?
You know, in Tyler ISD, I oversaw the special ed department, and in Ector County ISD coming in, that was one of the areas where I spent quite a bit of time working. My philosophy when it comes to special education is I believe in the least restrictive environment for special education students. I don't believe that you shut them away from the world in a room off to the side. That's not right. When they graduate from school, they're not going to be shut off in a room to the side. They're going to be in society, and they need to be equipped with the skills and the tools they need to be successful. As I mentioned in my introduction, it's all about their potential, and it's about us maximizing their potential. And so, where's that done? Is that done apart from core curriculum? Because we know quality curriculum happens in the classroom. We know quality instruction happens in the classroom. And if you have a teacher with 4 or 5 students with 4 or 5 different subjects and 4 or 5 different grade levels, if that's not acceptable for general education students, then why is that acceptable for special education students? I dare say it's not. So it's about the least restrictive environment, and it's about working with our teachers and working with our principals so that there are accommodations, there are modifications that allow that student to engage in the general education setting and to be successful in the general education setting. We should never look at a student as a label or as a program, but as a person, as our child, as we would want our children looked at. That's very important. Another slice of that is response to intervention. The Individuals with Disability Education Act, as it was reauthorized, said there has to be response to intervention, which means we don't need to fast-track kids to special education. We need to see what kind of intervention we can provide in the general education setting before we say you are tagged as a special education student, because there's nobody in America who loves to be tagged as anything. We are all individuals, and that's an honored thing. And so once you start saying you're labeled as a special ed student, then people tend to refer to you as such. And so if there's work we can do, if there's work that we can do within the general education setting to never have to place a student or tag them as a special needs student, I think that's a good thing, because what's the goal of special education? The goal of special education isn't for the student to be in special education forever. The goal is to get the student out of special education back into general education, so when they graduate in life, life is general. You know, there is no special education in life. And we want to be sure that the students are equipped to be successful. But that means there has to be a lot of support from the central level and the campus leadership level and the teacher leadership level. There has to be awareness in the community as to the type of support that the special needs students deserve and that they warrant. It's individual again.
Thank you. As you know, TUC has been under desegregation order for some time, is now working through the plan to be removed from that order, a unitary plan. You also face that in your current school district. Could you talk a little bit about your plan, about how this will be effectively implemented in Tucson, Arizona?
Sure. You know, when you take a look at any desegregation plan, it's a matter of honoring the dignity of people who feel that their dignity at one point in time was violated. I mean, when you think about why people file suit, they file suit because something in here doesn't feel right, and it registers up here. So you say, you know, I feel that I've been wronged. I feel I've been denied something. And so when people file suit, it's because they feel they've been wronged. They feel that they've been denied something. So it's a matter of taking a look at the desegregation court order. It's a matter of taking a look at the requirements that are set forth in the court order and saying, all right, these are remedies, but remedies to what? Do we truly understand the wrongs that have occurred? Do we truly understand whose dignity has been violated? Have we had that honest conversation about what's in the best interest of resolving this, not through paperwork or facades or hollow programs, but through really getting to the root of the issue? I think that you have to understand those things before any program can be implemented. You have to go to the people who filed the suit, and you have to have that conversation, and it has to be an open conversation, and you have to realize that that's one side and that there are others. And it's a matter of bringing people to the table that will allow there to be clarity in what needs to be done in a very short way. How did we address it in Ector County? Well, we got out of the desegregation court order because we brought everybody to the table. And we focused on what do you feel you've lost and how can we restore that in a way that we don't take something away from someone else. And that's a tough conversation to have because people have to be honest. They have to put aside their political agendas and their political views, and they have to be honest. And sometimes people are hard-pressed to do that. But it's possible. It's possible. And so that's the first step. And there have to be things that we look at and we agree upon that have to be addressed. And what all our part is. What's the part of the board? What's the part of the superintendent? What's the part of the cabinet? What's the part of the community? What's the part of the parents? What's the part of the different sides of the political view on it? It's the part of the courts. There has to be clarity. And then people have to work together because nothing is done apart or in isolation. But there has to be honesty before there can ever be trust, before there can ever be movement.
A two-part question. What do you expect to accomplish in your first year? And then looking back 5 years from now, what will you be most proud of as your accomplishments?
Within the first year, I think the first 6 months have to be about listening.
All right, right on.
Thank you. The first 6 months has to be about me sitting down with the board of trustees and listening. Sitting down with the cabinet and listening, sitting down with the parents and listening, sitting down with the students and listening, sitting down with those who have influence in listening and those who feel they don't have influence in listening. Y lo tenemos que hacer en inglés y en español. And if there are people, you know, I don't speak a language other than Spanish and English, but you know what? There are people who do, and if there are people that need to be heard, there are people who can translate and who can tell their story. And that's important. And so the first 6 months have to be about listening because you've all heard there are more things that bring us together as human beings than divide us. And it's about finding those things that bring us together, those common perspectives, those common points, concerns that we have to address together, and we start with those. And then we go down the list of things that might be specific to one group, and we treat those as if they were as important as the first thing we worked on. But there has to be a willingness to listen. In terms of 5 years down the road, you know, it's biblical. Without vision, the people will perish.
Amen.
I believe that. And you see that everywhere. And so, is it the leader's vision, or is it the leader's responsibility to work with the community to identify the vision? You can't come forward, I can't come forward and say, here's the vision for Tucson without having spent more than a few days here. I have to listen to what people say they want. You can't meet an expectation unless you ask what is the expectation and are open to the criticism that comes with it. So in the end, 5 years down the road, it'll be what the community says they want Tucson to be in 5 years when it grows up from this point to 5 years old. Because today's the first day of the rest of our time together, if given the opportunity. So 5 years, let's identify what we want at 5 years and at 10 years. And then let's structure next year and the year after that and this year what we need to do to get to that goal. What kind of things we have to sacrifice, what kind of things we have to put forward, what kind of things we have to commit to each other to do. And so what I would have to say, looking back after 5 years, I would be most proud of is that I wanted to take the time to sit and listen. And I wanted to take the time to ask questions without presumptions. And then I want to take the time for us to be able to build together.
As superintendent, you'll be responsible for thousands of employees, many of those employees hardworking, committed, honest, but you will face ethical questions as all leaders do. Talk about your philosophy, talk about your style and how you would deal with questions around unethical behavior by employees.
The first thing I'll mention is this, and I've been very consistent in this, and I've been very consistent in this in Edgar County. A very wise man that I respect tremendously, he and I once sat down for coffee, and he's the owner of a business in Odessa. And he said, HT, you have children, don't you? And I said, I have a 2-year-old, not a 6-year-old. He says, well, I have little boys too. He says, my little boy, when he grows up, he says, my little boy doesn't say, Dad, when I grow up, I want to be an employee. He wants to be Superman. He wants to be a superhero. Nobody grows up wanting to be an employee. And so the first thing, I don't believe that there should be division among us, because if the bus drivers don't wake up early and get the kids to school, then there is no education. And if our food service professionals don't do a good job of preparing a meal, there's no nutrition and kids check out after lunch. So when you take a look at the whole gamut, we're all a part of the same team. But I believe in grace. If there's something that is just not so egregious, because we all make mistakes, if there's something that is just not absolutely illegal, egregious, and hurts a kid, if people make mistakes, if they forget to file a report on time or do something like that, I believe in grace. But I think the ultimate standard is, when it comes down to those tough decisions, is we have to focus on, if that were my child, and something were to happen to my child, how would I want that addressed? And it has to be personalized. You have to take a look at the person and the circumstance. You have to look at the child and the circumstance, or you have to take a look at the totality of everything. Again, I just go back to dignity. You have to understand the entire situation and not jump to assume. You have to have all of the information and make an informed decision. But you have to do that, understanding that whatever decision you make, you're affecting the life of a person and not an employee, not a social security number or an identification number on a badge. And I think that's very important. I think that's very important. It really is. You have to be the change you seek in others, and what you would expect. You are the exemplar in this position. But in every position we hold, we are the exemplar. We either epitomize the best or we don't.
Thank you. HJ, there are a number of questions about charter schools. So if you would talk about your philosophy around charters, your experience working with them, how you complement the work, and also how you compete with the charter process.
Well, you know, I told the board when they brought this form up to my attention that it's part of my character to be very upfront, so I hope and pray that I don't offend anybody who believes in charter schools. But I'll say that whatever charter schools offer, I believe we can offer better.
All right, right on.
I believe that we do offer a better product in the students that are graduated. You know, when taking a look at the district's information, you have fewer schools that were rated D this year than you did in years past. Things are getting better. You have more people graduating than in the past. Does that mean there's still work to do? Yes, there is. But I'll say this. By bringing the community to the table and saying, what do you want? I think we can offer anything that a charter school may offer. And if there's something we're not offering, I believe we have the people and the talent that we can put that together and offer it. I mean, I've had a chance to tour the district. I've seen Promethean boards in classrooms. I've seen laptop cards. I know that we teach science, math, social studies, and language arts. That's part of the Common Core. I know that we have people who love kids. I mean, I was at a campus and there were teachers planning and working today. So I think it comes down to perception. I think what we have to do a better job of is telling our story and the things that we do well. But we also have to acknowledge the brutal facts, the things that we don't do well. A wise man taught me that. You have to acknowledge the things you don't do well, because only through that can you have healing. Only through acknowledging what's not right can you have progress. Not admitting, not acknowledging that there are things we can improve doesn't help you move forward. So I believe there's that balance, but in terms of charter schools, anything that a charter school, and I've passed by many of them. I mean, again, I'm not being critical, but I look at them and they're office buildings with gates around them and very unappealing, and they have a big banner and a slogan and a smiling kid. Well, so do we. So I believe we can offer anything a charter school can and then some. And I believe that we have, and I believe that we do.
Talk a bit about your working relationships with various bargaining units, obviously the teachers union and the other units, and how that has worked and how you would honor the commitments that are agreed to by TUSD.
You know, 2 years ago, Texas State Teachers Association, a gentleman, I'll use his name, and he's a good man and he's a good friend, but it wasn't always that way. His name's Chuck Isner. And Chuck Isner and I, for whatever reason, there was not understanding, and he came before the board and he said, Dr. Sanchez is implementing too much, too soon, too fast. And I listened to him, and he was right. He was right. But it takes humility to sit down and say, you're right. Now what can we do together to move past that? It's ignorance to say, you're wrong, and let me tell you why. No, if he believes that, then that's his perception and that's his reality. And so, what started off as a very adversarial relationship turned into okay, I kind of somewhat maybe might trust you, to, I consider him a friend. He has my cell phone number. He calls me, he texts me, he lets me know what's on his mind. He even provides solutions for problems that have nothing to do with the teacher organization that he represents. He says, did you ever think about this? You know, he doesn't have to do that. But what it comes down to is, and I go back to dignity. I violated his dignity, and I needed to acknowledge that so that we could move forward together. I needed him, and he needed me, and the students needed us to work together. And we do. And when it comes to teacher unions, professional unions, it's a matter of sitting down, because I have to believe in my heart that we all want the same thing. We want excellence for the students. What we have to then identify is, how do we do it together? What do we need to do to achieve this together, not apart?
As you know, and as many urban school districts are facing, TUSD is dealing with the difficult question of closing schools. Would you talk about your philosophy, your experience, and what are the key issues that you would address as you have to wrestle with the question of closing schools?
In terms of my experience, you know, in Ector County, we had, it sounds like the opposite problem, but it's the same problem, just backwards. So we had an oil boom. Y'all can tell by the price of gas. I tell people, and this is the truth, a pump jack is my next door neighbor to my house. It's true. I mean, it goes up and down on that line. I hear it. So we had 1,400 new students show up this year, and we had nowhere to put them. So we needed to get a bond together. And there were people that said the school should go here because it would be very nice in this location, and the school should go here because it'd be very nice in this location. No, the school needed to go where the students were. And so we have a demographer. We hired a demographer, one of the best in the state of Texas, and I'm sure Arizona has really great demographers as well. And what she did is she tracked the data over 30 years, and she saw where people were moving. So when it came down to which schools we were going to, where we were going to build the schools, it was based on hard data. It was based on that information. So when you're taking a look at, do we have to close schools? I would believe that I'm gonna have to say this, and time will tell, but I believe that we can rise up and do great work, and that people will want to come back. If they've left looking for something, whatever that void was, I think that we can bring people back. I believe that. And that's important. But we don't bring them back by what we say, we bring them back by what we do, and then what we say about what we do. That being said, we all know that every state, I mean, Texas last biennium cut $5.6 billion out of education. It's big. It hit us in about $14 million on the $224 million budget. That's big. Think about how many teachers that is. Well, we didn't have to cut one teacher. Why? Well, I believe that you have to take a look at the district and you have to take a look at your return on investment. I come from a background in which my family has an oil field construction company. It's all about ROI, return on investment. What are the things that we're paying for? And there's no return on investment. There's no metric by which to know that this is either working or not working, but yet we're still a slave to it. What are those things? Do we know? And if we don't, then how can we eliminate them? I don't believe in wasted motion. I was a cross-country runner, and we all know if you ran, that if the arms go up and down, that's not wasted motion. But once you start moving them sideways, it's wasted energy. We got to quit wasting energy, but we need to find out what those things are. And we need to do that in a very clear and transparent way. Stop being wasteful. I think that helps in the amount of money that has to be addressed. You know, from an outsider's point of view, I'll say that this district brings in $200 more per student than we do in Ector County. And we gave a $500 raise on top of the $500 step this year, and our starting teacher salary is $45,500. Our insurance deductible is $1,000, and the copay is $35. Or the premium by month is $35 per employee. I mean, it's on our website, so you know it is what it is. So how can we do that? I mean, how can we do that, and how can we not do that here? I don't know. I need to look into that. But again, you know, Texas, we're I don't know if we're famous or infamous, but we are very fiscally conservative. And in my community, we have a $55 million fund balance with a $224 million budget. That's huge. Oh, and by the way, it's really more of a $188 million budget because the rest of the money is federal money. So it's a $188 million budget with about a $55 million fund balance. And we just have to take a look at our efficiencies. And, you know, looking at the district's finances, I think the district has done a good job. But there's $20 million that are unassigned, about $20 million that are assigned for different types of capital projects, and then there's another $12 million that is assigned to debt service for bond purposes. So I'm talking about $55 million, you know, in Ector County that we have assigned out, but I mean, it's unrestricted. So with that being said, there's opportunity, and it's a matter of really taking a good close look at it. Wasted motion, make decisions based on data, and not closing schools in an arbitrary and capricious manner, but taking a look at all your options, taking a look at where the kids are, and then ask the question, why are kids not coming? And being real about it and addressing it. And why are they not coming? I don't know. You know, I told this story to one of the people on administration, so I'm in the cab, and I asked the cab driver, tell me what you think about, I said, do you have any kids? And he said, yeah, I have some kids. I said, are they in Tucson Unified School District? He says, yeah, I have a daughter who is. And I said, well, what do you think about the school? And he says, I hate the K through 8s. And I said, why? And he couldn't tell me why, but he told me he hated them. And what that is, that's a man without information. And so he made a decision without information. And so I said, so, I mean, come on, tell me why. Why do you hate them? I just hate them, they're no good. Why? Well, because we used to have a K through 6. Well, why was that better? Well, I mean, it was, because that's where I went. And so, but that's his reality. Why doesn't he have the information he needs? Because here I am, getting off the plane, getting into a cab, asking a question, and this is my first impression of the Tucson Unified School District. I mean, he's the ambassador. He doesn't have information. So we have to think about those things. So I know I've kind of strayed from the question some, but I think it all ties together. It's about information. It's about real information. That quantitative stuff and then that qualitative stuff, they both balance each other and they matter.
We're going to have a little change in the form. We're going to move this to bilingual. So we will have questions in Spanish, and Dr. Sanchez, I will give you the question. You can choose how to translate if you wish, but you are encouraged to submit your questions in Spanish.
¿Qué piensas hacer sobre la discriminación que ocurre en las escuelas hacia los niños que están en educación especial y son indocumentados? Responda en español. Esa es la pregunta. Question is, what do you think about discrimination in schools as it relates to students who have special needs and who may be undocumented? Please respond in Spanish. Hay una ley en la nación que dice que nosotros no podemos discriminar sobre alumnos que son documentados o si son de otro país sin documentación, ¿sí? Es Tyler v. Doe. Yo lo conozco muy bien porque ocurrió en Tyler, un distrito donde yo trabajé. La razón es, no hay ningún beneficio en tener un grupo de alumnos que viven en este país sin educación, porque ¿qué pueden hacer? En las palabras de mi abuela, nomás van a ser males. No van a hacer nada bueno, porque con la educación todo es posible. Yo pienso que la cosa que necesitamos hacer mejor es comunicarnos con los padres que tienen alumnos en clases de educación especial y preguntarles, ¿qué usted piensa que estamos haciendo mal? Habla con nosotros sobre esto. Porque pienso que no tienen la información que necesitan. Porque no pienso que un maestro o maestra va a hacer cosas negativas con un alumno. Y si está ocurriendo, pues necesitamos saber porque lo podemos arreglar. Si sabemos, pero si no sabemos, no podemos hacer nada. Pero yo pienso que a veces hay cosas que pasan. Así. Porque hay chance que tenemos un alumno que necesita ayudar en lenguaje, en articulación, pero lo estamos dando instrucción en inglés y necesita ayuda en español primero y luego en inglés. Y si no tenemos ese servicio, ¿cómo podemos sacar este servicio para un alumno que necesita eso? Y yo sé que cuesta dinero, pero el gobierno federal nos da una beca, IDEA, que nos da el dinero a poder pagar para servicios así. Si no tenemos a alguien en el distrito que lo puede hacer, porque yo sé que hay varios distritos en esta área y van a necesitar unos servicios que son casi igual. ¿Cómo podemos trabajar con otros distritos que tienen esa necesidad como nosotros para los alumnos? ¿Cómo podemos trabajar así juntos? Eso es una idea. Solo porque Sunnyside es otro distrito no podemos trabajar con ellos. No, eso no es correcto. Podemos trabajar con ellos si es para el beneficio de nuestros alumnos. I'll say it in English. Not as long, but maybe as passionately. To the question of discrimination against special needs students, a lot of times what it comes down to is a lack of information and a lack of understanding. And with information and understanding, then I think services can be explained and understood better. But if there is discrimination, we need to know it so we can correct it. But of course, we have to come to an understanding of what the definition of discrimination is. Is it truly discrimination, or is it just not the following of the IEP, of the individual's education plan? I mean, it could be as simple as that. And what if the student needs a service that should be provided in Spanish, but we don't have somebody in the district who can do that? Well, I'm sure that, Sunnyside and other school districts also have similar needs and similar students, and how can we work together and share costs in providing those services if they're needed? I mentioned that Tyler v. Doe is a Supreme Court decision that said you got to educate. It's CPC, Equal Protection Clause, 14th Amendment. Anybody within the domain of the United States, they deserve the benefit of the protection of the law. Perfect, imperfect, it is what it is. Supreme Court has viewed it multiple times. And so when you take a look at it, we can't discriminate against kids who are undocumented. Our job isn't to say, are you legal or illegal? Our job is to say, you need to be educated. Because maybe one day you can apply, and you can go through the system, and you can handle your business. If your parents brought you over here illegally, it's not your fault. You didn't tell them, hey, load me up in the car and let's go break the law of the United States of America. I mean, that way they're not an active participant, they're a passive participant. So that's an issue that the Supreme Court has already dealt with. I mentioned Tyler ISD. I was in Tyler ISD. I actually sat down with an attorney who became a good friend of mine, and he told me, his first person story when he went and tried that case at the Supreme Court. I mean, John told me all about it. And he told me what his perception was and what he believed and what was right and what was wrong and whatnot. And so I'm very familiar with the case, not just because I taught school law at the university at A&M Commerce, but because I actually sat down with the attorney that took it to the Supreme Court and got to, as one of my former, as our former governor and president looked into the eyes and saw into the soul of the man. Well, that's George W. Bush. Next question.
We've forgotten that prior president. Talk a little bit about the changes of education. So there's a lot of national and local and state debate about things like the Common Core standards. If you could explain the Common Core standards and your understanding of that, and also where you see education going as more and more pressure is being placed on public education.
Y'all are going to love this because you know I'm from Texas and we didn't adopt the Common Core standards, right? I'll say this though. You know, I don't have the nice hair that Rick Perry has, but I will share 3 points and let's see if I can remember them all. I'm just kidding. I know this is a live video stream, so I might not be allowed back in Texas. But honestly, Walt Whitman said, and I shared this with the board, a foolish consistency is a hobgoblin of little minds. So when you take a look at Common Core, is it a foolish consistency? Is that what we're after? Or are we after something better than that? And so, is it the race to the top or the race to mediocrity? We get to define that. Because I don't believe that by implementing the core standards that we forgo our right to provide students the love for learning and teachers the love to teach. I think we can do this. And so when you take a look at Common Core, what's it about? Common Core says in the United States, if you're educated in here, you should at least know these things. So how's that been done in the past? Think about this critically. Through the textbooks. I mean, Pearson, I was on a campus today, they whipped open the book room and they had Pearson. And guess what? We have Pearson in Texas too. So we think we don't have Common Core, but we do. Because when you take a look at what's in the textbook, it's filtered through somebody's lens, whoever writes it and publishes the thing, and what their political bend is, it's already there. With all that being said, no, I'm not a fan of Pearson. With all that being said, oh, by the way, y'all know they're a British company, right? Pearson's a British company that takes dollars from the United States, has no accountability to us. Anyway, just so you know. But when you take a look at the Common Core, there's something noble in wanting to make sure that every American knows at least these things. But we should never allow ourselves to be limited by those things. That's not the ceiling, that's the floor. And so we do those things. And then we inspire love for learning, and we inspire love for teaching. Because it's not about that being our maximum, it's, yeah, well, we cover that. We cover fractions, we cover conversions, we cover, Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea and the whole rest of it. We cover it. But I believe that it's through the art of how we deliver it and engage kids in it that's really meaningful. And I don't think that there should ever be a mandate on how that's done. I think you walk in, you look at the kids, and if they're engaged and they're enjoying the instruction, then that's the right way. Is there a cookie cutter way? No, there's not. So I don't believe that you pull that back, and there's been a lot of misunderstanding with Common Core, that Common Core takes people's freedom away, only if we let it. I believe that it's our work in curriculum to say, all right, first 6 weeks, first term, this is what we're going to teach. And order it, we just want to be sure that by the first 6 weeks, at this point, everybody in your class, they got it. How you teach it, how you order it, how you organize it should be up to you and your peers. So if there are 3 kindergarten teachers, let them work together, learn from each other, and share. As educators, we're the best things in the world. So learn from each other, take from each other, and then by the end of the 6 weeks, you've covered it all. So again, Common Core shouldn't be the maximum. It should be the floor, not the ceiling. It's something that we look at and we say, yeah, we cover that, and let's cover it, and let's do it better than anyone else. Let's engage our kids with it. But textbooks don't engage kids, worksheets don't engage kids, Common Core doesn't engage kids, teachers engage kids, and y'all know that.
Another thing we have in common, I also don't have Rick Perry's hair. Let's talk a little bit about science in the classroom. Talk about your views on the issues that are sometimes in public debate about evolution, about climate change, and the role of the public school in teaching those issues.
You know, there will always be controversial issues. I think, you know, if you take a look at the great artists, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, they were all criticized for their beliefs. That's just kind of the way things go, that there always be critiques, and y'all have always heard the victors tend to write history, right? I mean, we've all heard that. But my opinion, my personal opinion is, and this is speaking as a dad and then as a potential superintendent for this district, my opinion is very simple. I believe that our job is not to indoctrinate students. I believe our job is to teach them how to read, teach them how to write, teach them mathematics, and you present them information. But you empower them to think critically, and they'll come to the right conclusions, which will be their conclusions, not mine, not yours, their conclusions. I mean, what you believe today is what you believe today, not because somebody came up to you before the form and elbowed you and said, hey, here's what you should believe. I mean, you came to your own conclusions. Our job as educators is to put the information before students and to allow them to debate it and to allow them to look at both sides of it, not to say, hey man, I mean, it's hot out, it's 105 right now outside, and it's because of climate change, because we're burning fossil fuels. It's a matter of saying some people believe, and other people say that it's a natural heating cycle, and where we are, and the planet's rotation around the universe, and there were times in which, you know, we've all read that, you know, there were times where rhinos took a bath in the Thames River and in the Rhine. I mean, they found fossils there. Well, I don't think that the cavemen were, you know, lighting up the SUV and going. So that's one point of view. So there are those points of view, and you present them the information, and you let them debate it, you let them think about it, and you let them make their own decision. I don't believe that our job in education is to indoctrinate. I believe our job in education is to inform. And then as they grow up and they mature and they become active citizens and participants in a democratic nation and a republic, as they begin then to make their own conclusions off the information that they gave you. And you know, I'm from Texas, and when I was a 7th grader, we learned Texas history, and we learned about the heroes of the Alamo. And these great heroes defended the Alamo against these bad Mexican guys. And so there were all the little Mexican children cheering for the heroes of the Alamo. And when you get a little older and you go to college, and then you figure out that, well, wait a minute, there's another side to this thing. They broke a treaty. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. You can make up your own mind. You can decide what you want. There's one guy telling you this, and then there's a teacher telling you that. And it's your job to decide. Now, I'm a proud Texan. Still, I look forward to being a proud Arizonan. But I'm a proud Texan, and I believe that there are heroes on both sides of it for different reasons. It's a matter of understanding what they fought for. So in the end, with science, evolution, you know, creationism, global warming, they're all perspectives. And at one point in time, we believed the world was flat and that we were the center of the universe, and somebody decided to disagree with that, and guess what? They're right. So I think our job is to put information before students and let them make up their own mind, not to indoctrinate them. I don't believe in that. I don't want anybody to do that to my daughter.
Some folks would like to know where you plan to buy a house and do you plan to put your kids in TUSD?
I'll say this with all due honesty, and the best predictor of somebody's future is their past. People can change, and people do have tendencies. In Tyler ISD, I lived in Tyler ISD. In Waco ISD, I lived in Waco ISD. In Louisville ISD, I lived in Louisville ISD. In Ector County ISD, I live in Ector County ISD. My daughter goes to Austin Montessori in Ector County ISD. My wife is a principal in Ector County ISD. Not in Austin Montessori, but at Barbara Jordan. She just didn't want to put a teacher to the torment of Mama being the principal. And I applaud her for that boldness, and I think the teachers appreciate that. So, if my past is a prediction of what I'll do here, I plan on buying in the district. You know, I got to sell my house in Odessa, and I think it'll sell quickly. You know, homes are hard to come by in Odessa now. But, and I will put my daughter in our school district. I mean, I've already done that in Ector County, and people would have said 3 years ago, Ector County doesn't have a great reputation. But I'll offer you this. Find me one parent out there, and if you ask these questions, what do you think about the district? Oh, it's bad. What do you think about your school? Oh, it's all right. What do you think about your teacher? I love her. I love him. You ask them that same set of questions next. What do you think about district? Oh, it's terrible. What do you think about school? It's all right. What do you think about teacher? I love her. Well, wait a minute here. That's 2 in a row. Are you lucky or are we all right? So I believe that we're all right, and I would trust my daughter to the system, but it also provides me perspective as a parent, and that's very important. Because I don't want to be making decisions in a vacuum. I think it's very powerful to have my child in the district, because I'm not making decisions in a vacuum. I know that what I would put forward to the board as a vote, what I would put forward to the staff as work, is going to affect my daughter directly. That's important. I mean, that's important. There's a face to every educational decision.
A number of the questions have raised questions about communication. Some folks are concerned about they don't have access to computers. They'd like to know your style to actually receive unfiltered information, how they can make sure you get the feedback you need.
I hope Pat Canty is watching this. Pat Canty is the publisher of the Odessa American in Odessa, so you're streaming it, Pat. I hope you're watching this. When I became interim superintendent in Ector County, I invited in all of the news directors from the TV stations. And I invited in Pat Canty, who's the publisher of the Odessa American, a good man, a philanthropist. He's on our education foundation, donates time, money, and press to help the kids. And so I said, Pat, and I said, Jose and the rest of the people in the room, I said, what can I do to build a relationship with you? Because yeah, I can do the parent link phone call. I can send stuff out in the email. I can put a paper in the backpack. But people listen to you. They watch your TV stations, or when they're standing in line at Starbucks or at the gas station, they pull up the newspaper and they read it. And so my question was, how can I work with you? And what Pat said was, HT, what people are tired of, and I took this to heart, he said people are tired of the, I think he called it massage. The message is so massaged, it's just like plastic. I mean, it's not real. He says, you can't do that. You got to tell people what you're thinking, and you got to tell people, you know, what you believe. And it can't be filtered. So, I'll tell you what's really great is I did a State of the District address. It was live streamed. There was no practice. I mean, I had my notes and I spoke. And our media guy, our public information officer, said, I wish I had a 5-second delay. I said, hey, there'll be no wardrobe malfunction. So I told him he didn't need one. I speak directly to the district team. Every Friday, I do a video message. I record it. I send out the YouTube link. People can watch it. And they can talk about it, and it's there, and it's archived. You know, once you put something out on the internet, remember this, it's always out there forever. So don't do crazy things. But I've done 2 live video streams. One was over our accountability scores, and the newspaper reporter came in and sat in the front row, and she asked me a lot of questions, and they weren't pre-screened, and I just gave her the answers that I gave her. Said, yeah, I'm proud of the secondary, they look good. Our elementary, man, we got some work to do. But it begins today. I need to find out who our heavy hitter teachers are that really did great, bring them to the table and say, tell me what you did, how'd you do it, and let's systemize that, and let's help the other teachers out. Let's get the good stuff to everybody, and that was the raw answer. It wasn't, well, through a systemic approach, we're going to identify, using data, the key stakeholders to be able to facilitate excellence to the district. That's nothing. That's ridiculous. So I don't believe in that. I'll also do a Monday memorandum where I'll lay out, here's what we're doing. You know, this is the work plan, here's what's going on, hey, there's a hot topics discipline, and here's the considerations, and I email it out to all the staff. I also send it out to the media outlets and say, if there's anything on here that interests you, you can talk to me about it, and it's directly from me. So I do spend time doing that. And one of the other things that I said in Ector County, I said, guys, if I'm here next year, said, I'm looking forward to going out to the churches on Wednesday nights when you have your kids there and catching y'all and just visiting. And like I said, I'll do it in English, I'll do it in Spanish, and if I need to do it in another language and have somebody there to translate, I'll do that too. I'll also ask the administrative team to do that. My administrative team in Odessa is excellent. I mean, they're the best group of people I've ever had the opportunity to work with, and I think these folks here have the same heart. But they've been real good coming out with me doing these things too. We passed a bond. We ended up with enough money to really do some great work. And I went out to the junior high schools and I asked the parents, what do you want? What can we do? What can we deliver? I just listened. I took notes. And I did that. You know, I believe in that. I believe in being available and accessible. And when I'm at the grocery store, I love people to come up and say, hey, I have a question, and just ask. So I'm very open, and I make myself as available as possible.
So hopefully TUSD will put on the website where he lives and what grocery store he lives.
I only found the Safeway on Broadway so far. That's it. I don't know the other ones. I'm going to miss HEB if I come out here. I love HEB.
HC, our public schools provide the promise of opportunity for our students. Yet statistically, our students often don't achieve what we'd like to see them achieve. We have a lot of focus on student achievement, and yet we have a long way to go. Talk about your philosophy, talk about your experience, talk about what you would do to actually deliver on student achievement.
You know, that's real interesting. I mean, that's a great question because it's a question asked across the United States. But you know, there are places that have answered that question. I'll talk about a district in Texas, Aldine ISD. Look it up. They're a Broad Prize winning district. That means, you know, Broad Prize is the prize for the most prestigious urban district in the nation that year. So Aldine won the Broad Prize. They're a 90-90-90 district. What the heck's that mean? 90% minority, 90% low SES, low socioeconomic, you know, poor, and then 90% of them are just doing outstanding on the state test and graduating. So how are they 90-90-90? I mean, oh, by the way, they have over 90,000 students. So does Northside in San Antonio. They have over 100,000 students. And demographically, I mean, like here, like Aldine, like here, you know. How do they do it? Well, they have systems. Some of it I've already talked about. And what you have to do is you have to identify, think about this, it's very simple, it just takes work, and it takes time. If you ask a first grade teacher, did the kindergartner show up with everything that they needed to know? First grade teacher says no. If you ask a kindergarten teacher, did you teach them everything they needed to know? Kindergarten teacher says yes. So there's a breakdown in communication. But you know what? They're both absolutely right. Because the first grade teacher may be expecting something that the kindergarten teacher is unaware of, and the kindergarten teacher may be delivering something that the first grade teacher may say, you know, I don't need that. Or may say, I'm glad you did that, but I needed this too. So in education, you have to think about it. A lot of times we're not the best at communication. I mean, I think that's our critique nationwide. So how do we get our elementary, our kinder, all the way up to high school through 12th grade teachers talking to each other about what are those things that they expect above the Common Core? What do we need to teach them by the end of kinder? Let's get some agreement on some of these things. What do we need to teach them by the end of 6th grade? Let's get some agreement on some of these things. And then let's talk about how we can work together as a district, being a large district, to leverage financial resources to cut costs in ordering in materials, resources, and supplies to be able to do that. I mean, do we have a council of, do we bring in all the high school department chairs and they sit down and talk with the middle school department chairs about what's going on? If we don't, we need to. Do we have lead teachers over biology and chemistry and physics to talk to, you know, each other across the district? If we don't, we need to. Do we have a first grade teacher who's teaching balanced literacy, talking to another first grade teacher who's teaching balanced literacy? Are we on the same page with that? Do we have the same leveled readers in all campuses, or is it left up to the discretion of the principal and the budget? If it's left up to the discretion of the principal and the budget and we don't have those minimum tools, then we need to do those things. So in terms of delivery, there are models out there, and what do? They communicate, they talk, they work together, they share ideas, they share solutions, they make them systemic, but they never deny people their individuality to be able to do the things they love. And there are models out there. There are very successful models out there that are not rigid lockstep models. Again, I go back to, you don't focus on the test, you focus on teaching the student, inspiring that love for learning, inspiring that love for teaching, and you know what you got to get done, and you do it. But we got to talk about what that is. We have to have some common understanding. The other thing we have to do is we have to know our students well. You know, we have to know which ones from, I mean, yeah, you have to think about this, because if you have a neighborhood school, or if you have a campus that has a lot of English language learners, there's going to need to be some acceleration in some places. So that curriculum, that approach can be the exact same as another campus that may not have that challenge. So it all has to be weighed through the needs of the students. There has to be that site-based piece within that, but there should also be some common tools and common language, because y'all know in here that you have kids 1 month, they live here, and then they get an apartment rent break, and they move over here, and then they're out of money, and they move in with abuela or abuelo over here, or tia or tío or friend, and then they're back at your campus. So there has to be some continuity because we have mobility, but there also has to be the ability to meet the needs of the kids in their specific situation, and it's a balance. But it's only through continuous, constant communication that we're able to do that. I can go more into that, but I won't. It's a very big and complex issue. In Ector County, the way we addressed it is we have what I call campus curriculum facilitators. We have reading specialists and reading coaches, and their jobs are to go out and to help and to provide resources and to provide support and to make sure that the things that are needed to roll out are supported, that it's not like an unfunded mandate that we love so much from our state and federal government. Go do this and then go figure it out and we'll hold you accountable for it. No, it's a matter of here's what we're going to do, here's some people who are going to help and be a resource.
We are halfway through. How about a round of applause? This is not easy. I would again encourage you to submit your questions. I'm shuffling them around. I'm trying to summarize what I can. There are quite a few here, but please submit any of the questions you have if you'd like it, and we'll get back to them. And I am not screening, so I will try to make sure that we get the, and you will see right now that these are not screen questions. So a number of folks have asked questions about for you to talk specifically about your experience. Talk about your background and how that translates to running a district as complicated and as large as TUSD. Talk about specifically, there have been criticisms about your being a job hopper. So talk about the jobs you've had and how that has moved you through. And then talk about your reflections on being the sole candidate for TUSD superintendent.
If I'm forgetting of this stuff, remind me. All right. I know there's a whole division of church and state and everything like that, but you're looking at a former Catholic school principal. So I'll just give you all that warning ahead of time. I just want to give you all that warning ahead of time because I'll tell you, I found a very nice church in Tucson. My prayer was for God to put me where He needs me. You know, God has permissive will, and then God has determinate will. And, you know, this is who I am. No, I'm not apologizing for this. But God has permissive will, and God has determinate will. And if you fight God's determinate will, it never works out. If He gives you permissive will, then it works out. He gives you choice. But sometimes He has you where He needs you. So that's a backdrop. I mean, that's who I am as a man. And will I be infusing, you know, religion into public education? No, but that's who I am.
All right.
That's who I am. So y'all need to know that. And in Texas, we push it a little bit. So y'all know that. But I'll say this to y'all. So at 26, I become the principal of St. Mary's Central Catholic School. So I go in, and Father Mark, amazingly enough, was the same man who baptized me as a baby. Ends up being my boss. Father says, HT, you're the best guy for the job. And he says, by the way, our enrollment's dropping, we're upside down, things aren't working out, the gym has no AC. We don't have any computers either, we're having a hard time retaining teachers because we pay about $15,000 less than the public school district. Good luck. And what I learned in that job at the age of 26 is all's possible with God and faith and a lot of hard work, but don't ever overestimate your ability and try to do it by yourself. You have to do it with people. And there were a lot of great people in the community that wanted to see that school succeed. And so by the time I left to begin pursuing my doctorate, We had doubled the enrollments at the elementary, 3K, 4K. We had twice as many kids. We filled up our gym. I wrote a grant to the King Ranch Foundation, and they gave us $25,000 to air condition the gym and use it for the community. I took in broken down computers from businesses, and my maintenance guy, who was brilliant, his name's Fidel, we rebuilt those computers, changed out the hard drives, and we ran all this wiring and built a network, and we put a computer in every room. And so I realized that if you commit yourself to it and you have a clear vision, people will follow it, and people will believe, and people will do amazing things. That school, they just finished renovating the entire school, and it continues to be there. And so I'm very honored to be a part of that. But what I learned there is it's through community and sacrifice and willingness to get in there and never to believe you're too important to do the hard work. I went to work on my doctorate at A&M on commerce. Got a great scholarship coming in, and I think I actually made money when I left. I mean, it was a really good situation. So I get accepted into A&M Commerce. By the way, my daughter's name is Anastasia Michaela, A&M. So anyway, that's how crazy we are. I ended up in Louisville ISD, and I get the opportunity to open the first bilingual campus in Flower Mound. Now that's where Deion Sanders' wife lived. So, like a $500,000 home, I mean, you're living in the hood in Flower Mound. Most of the homes are very expensive. And so in Louisville, what I learned when we had these kids who were bilingual students coming in, 2 or 3 living in an apartment, 2 or 3 families living in an apartment together, parents working in the service industry, cutting people's grass and ironing their clothes and fixing their food and all that stuff. And then kids who came from very nice homes, my job was, how do you build community? How do you get people together? How do you let them learn to realize that they're the same? They want the same thing. Both wanted excellence for their children. So I learned that there. I left the Tyler ISD. I was there 2 years, and then I was assistant principal in Louisville. And a friend of mine was working on his doctorate with me at A&M. Said, hey, Tyler has a campus, Dogan Middle School. I still love Dogan to this day. 50% African American, 50% Hispanic. And they don't like each other. And I was the first Hispanic principal. This school was an all African American school during the segregation there. And so I had to go in and build community again. But and this is a tragedy, and it happens all over the United States. There were teachers who, for whatever reason, found themselves there, and other campuses said, oh, well, you got all those really tough teachers. You know what? Nobody goes to work wanting to fail and not be successful, but sometimes they go to work without hope. And what we did there is we re-inspired hope, and a faculty that had been so beaten down and beaten up was re-energized, and in a year, we did things with our kids that people didn't believe were possible. And so it's about giving people hope, not just the kids. The hope starts with the teachers. If the teachers believe and have hope, the kids will have hope. It works together, and then the community has hope. When they say, you know what? Mijo can read. Yeah, he can read. He always could. We just needed to get it out of him. So I went to the Waco Independent School District, and I was the Waco High School principal after that. And I wanted to stay at Dogan. I had a beautiful house in the historic district. It was a 1936 house that was built by a country doctor, very antebellum South and everything. It was just really neat, but kind of creepy at night. So, the deputy superintendent becomes the superintendent in Waco, a good man, Roland Hernandez, Dr. Hernandez. And so he asked me to go with him. I ended up becoming, in Waco, the principal of Waco High School. And in Waco High School, it was a school that during the desegregation and integration was done poorly. And people were still hurt, and dignity had been violated. And it was a matter of, again, working with the faculty to, and I have the football helmet in my office. We were the pride of Waco. That's what I said to the kids. We're the pride of Waco. Is this how the pride of Waco comports itself? No, sir. We are the pride of Waco. We graduated that year, the biggest graduation class in 10 years. We recovered kids that had lost hope. Yes, on occasions I had to take kids to the Estella Maxi Project in my car, and their mothers were laid out, and it was tragic and it was horrible. But you know what? Those kids deserve an education and opportunity. And what I learned at Waco is elementary through high school, they need hope, they need belief, they need to be a part of something bigger, they need to be engaged, they need to feel they're important, they need to feel they're safe. I left to Tyler Independent School District again. They invited me back, so they liked me enough to invite me back as a bilingual director, and the program was under scrutiny by the state. My last year in Tyler, the teacher of the year for elementary was a bilingual teacher. Our program had done that well, and we were doing good things in literacy and English and Spanish, and we were building bridges. And at mid-year, again, mid-year superintendent says, HT, you know what, I got some news for you. I said, yes, sir. He says, I'm going to give you special ed, I'm going to give you current technology education, I'm going to give you pre-K, I'm going to give you state compensatory education, response to intervention, advanced academics and counseling on top of bilingual. I need you to work this. He says, so let's do good work there too. So I did that, and it was his invitation. So before I left, I've been asked to take on all of the academics, to take on 4 core as well as on the special projects and to lead that. I ended up going back to Ector County. They invited me back as assistant superintendent over the same areas, and then halfway through my first year in Ector County, the team of assistant superintendents, I was one of them, I was in this one, went up to the superintendent and said, Hector, HT needs to be our chief of staff. And so Hector takes me to this restaurant that I got food poisoning at. And so and Hector, Hector says, all right, well, I think we're pretty close to working, and I'm going to talk to the board and everything. So I became, midway through my first year in Ector County, I became chief of staff. And again, there's God's will that's permissive, and there's God's will that's determinate. And you do His work, and you do it proudly. And so I don't believe I'm here by accident. I don't believe the experiences I've had were accidental. At this point, it's the culmination of all those things, but I'll say this to you. It's going to take time to work through the things we need to work through here. It's going to take dedication, it's going to take long hours, and it's going to take some sacrifice on my part, on your part, on the community's part. We're going to make good decisions, and we're going to make bad ones. We're going to make right decisions, and we're going to make wrong ones. And we need to admit the bad and the wrong and fix it. But it's going to take time. We need a 5-year plan, and we need people at the table to lay out what is the work. And then we need to not take our eye off that prize. Fires, yeah, there'll be fires. There'll be the emergency du jour. That always will happen. And we deal with those things, but we don't take our eye off the prize. What do we want in 5 years, and what do we do each year? That's going to be what takes us down the road to success. That's the only thing. You've heard the cliche, if you fail to plan to fail, hey, it's on the bumper sticker for a reason.
Thank you. Let me ask a slightly different question, just a little bit of follow-up on that. The district has gone through a number of superintendents over the last 10 years, as you know. You just talked about a 5-year plan. What can you do to assure the parents, the teachers, students that you will be here in 5 years?
My daughter's in 1st grade. I don't need to answer it? All right. My daughter's in 1st grade. And I owe it to her to find a place where she can go to school. And it's not fair to her to say in 2 years, Mija, I got to take you somewhere else. I don't want to tear up when I say this, but when she found out that she and my wife were going to go with a realtor to look at houses, she cried because she didn't want to sell the house. And that's hard, to see her crying. My 2-year-old doesn't understand, but she doesn't deserve me to move her in 2 years. My wife, she should have divorced me by now. But she's a very good woman. She's a godly woman. She's a very good woman, and I owe her a lot. I'm not full either. I think I'm the head of the household, but like they say, she's the neck that turns the head. And the foot that kicks my butt. Lovingly. But I can't. I got to find a place where I'm going to be, and if it's not here, then I need to commit that I'm going to be in Ector County. And I need my daughter to finish up her elementary years before I even think about anything. I owe that to her. I mean, even if it means that my board over there says, HT, we're going to put you to file folders and file papers. I mean, I owe it to my daughter. I owe it to my wife, but if given the opportunity, I would owe it to the parents, the mothers and fathers here, and the grandparents who take care of the grandchildren, and to the kids. I know this isn't going to be easy work. I'm not fooled into thinking that it can come in and you do this and it's all fixed. And at St. Mary's, I learned my lesson. I'm young, I know. I'm 38. I don't mind telling you. I'll be 39 on August 15th, though. Because those months will make a profound difference in me. But yeah, I'm 38. But you know what? That's the right age, because I'm not so fixed in the system that I believe things can be done. I'm still willing to take risks and do the things and make mistakes. And you're not going to hear me say, oh, no, I can't do that because I did this in another district and it didn't work. I don't have those scars, those bumps, those bruises, and maybe that's a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because I'm not afraid to try those things that will take us to excellence. And I can admit that I'm wrong. I do that when I am. And so I know that there was concern, this guy's too young. Hey, you need somebody who's young to do this work. You need somebody who has the tenacity to put in the hours to do this. And my wife has arrived, so I'm going to embarrass her. Stand up, please. This is my wife. This is Mary Ann Sanchez. And this is my daughter, Anastasia Sanchez. Anastasia Micaela Sanchez. A&M. So I hope that answers the question.
Well, you did it with the right audience. As you are well aware, Dr. Sanchez, Mexican American Studies has dominated a lot of the conversation over the last number of years, and it's been a challenge for our community as well as issues up with the state. Talk about your perspective on Mexican American Studies, where you see the issues going, how you would lead this community and the school district to where we need to be.
That's a great question. You know, I thought about this a lot because I knew that was something that really defined Tucson for the nation. You'd say Tucson, oh, Mexican American Studies, people protesting, the signs, all of that. And so Tucson was known for that. And you know, like I told you, I'm gonna give y'all the honest answer. I know that y'all feel passionately about Mexican American Studies. You know, I'm Latino. You know, Sanchez, it's not by accident. I mean, you know, my father and grandfather told me that my great-grandfather rode with Pancho Villa in the Revolution. So, I mean, you know, hey, it explains my wild child, my 2-year-old. I'll say this to y'all, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. And I already expressed some of this earlier. Our job isn't to indoctrinate students. Our job is to provide students with information. And so some of the critiques of Mexican American Studies said we were indoctrinating children to hate Anglos, and some of them said, no, we were empowering them. I don't have enough information to know which one it was. So for me to give you an answer to say, I believe it's bad or I believe it's good would be disingenuous, but what I can tell you is, as human beings, you know, it wasn't just African Americans who marched in Selma. There were whites, there were Hispanics, there were Asians. And it wasn't just African Americans that showed separate but equal was not right. It was Latino, Latinas, Asians, you know, Native Americans, African Americans, Anglo Americans. There are those things that tie us and bind us together. And what we have to realize is the struggle is the human struggle. It's not a Latino struggle alone or an African American struggle alone or an Anglo struggle alone, because I mean there are white people who feel that discrimination is now upon them. There's a Supreme Court case right now. You know? And I understand the flip side of that, because as a Latino, I don't want anybody to say, oh, he got the job because they lowered the standard because he was Hispanic. No, the best person needs to get the job. So my point is, you know, on St. Patrick's Day, we need to be Irish Americans. On Cinco de Mayo, let's be Mexican Americans. In terms of Mexican American Studies, there's value in knowing the history of the people who comprise this state and this nation. That's important. And I believe that our job is to not politicize education, but to provide information for students to make their own decisions. That's powerful. So our job isn't to say, you know, Cesar Chavez was right and people were wrong. Our job's to say, this is a view, this is a perception. And it's the student's job to critically evaluate the information and to come up with what they believe. Because as I said before, they'll come up with the right decision. It will be their decision. And we know that the teacher who teaches passionately, it's hard to take your view out of it. And I'm not saying we do that, but I say we balance what we present to students. So am I saying that Mexican American studies should go away forever? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we need to understand, and I'll go back to this, whose dignity was violated to the point that there was legislation passed at the state level to target one class. Whose dignity was violated? What information wasn't clear and communicated well? I don't believe that it was a bad thing at first glance. But at the same point in time, somebody did, to the point that they passionately took it to the legislature, and it was, and there was a foundation set to eliminate the class. So it's a matter of what was it? What, you know? And I read through you know, the different articles, and you know, teaching children to hate, the Latino children to hate white people, and that it's only through blood that good's done. I mean, I saw that stuff. I mean, I think that's sensationalized. I really can't see anybody saying that. I can't. But I wasn't in that room. But somebody believes that, and why? I don't know. So the bottom line is, when we take a look at Mexican American studies, or Irish American studies, or West European American studies, you know, there was a piece done on Sonia Sotomayor, the Supreme Court Justice. She has a story. We all have a story. We need to understand the story, and then we need to relate that story's merit to our own lives and the lessons it teaches us as we move forward. Because Brown versus Board of Education wasn't a black thing only. It was an American thing. And when you take a look at anything that occurs in this nation, it's about what unites us that gives us power, not what divides us. That takes our power, because we allow ourselves to be divided and categorized. They say I'm Hispanic. I don't hiss and I don't panic. I mean, you know, that makes no sense to me. I don't like labels. And labels aren't good. But what you have to take a look at is history and information and context, and understand the struggles of the time and the lessons it teaches us, so that we can use the past as a springboard to the future, as opposed to an excuse for why we can't do what we need to do now for the next generation, so that there is improvement in the lives of our children. That's my stance.
Let me ask this a little more specific. Do you believe that Mexican American studies should be part of the curriculum in TUSD?
Yes or no?
You know, like I said, I was going to shoot straight. I'm going to shoot straight, and I'm going to say Mexican American studies, and don't clap, let me finish, because you might say, Mexican American studies should, if Irish American studies, if East European American studies, if European American studies, if African American studies, it all has to be in there. Everybody has a story. So do I just categorically say, no, it needs to not be in there? I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it needs to be in there, but so does everybody else's story. So that's my answer. I mean, I say yes, but so does everybody else's story.
I think the audience wanted to hear that specifically.
Okay.
Let me shift the conversation a little bit. There are a series of conversations. I will not do them justice by combining them, but I will try, because there are many of them, about the role of, so you mentioned power. Talk about shared power, shared governance. Talk about your perspective on school councils. Talk about the roles of parents. Talk about whether that should be advisory as opposed to decision making. And then really share your philosophy around school size as well as classroom size.
All right. You know, this is very interesting because of this conversation that I had here very recently to this point. Policy and law sets up a bureaucratic hierarchy in public education. So we say we want to empower people. But in the end, how do you do that in a hierarchical bureaucratic organization? There's a way. But what that way is, again, it goes back to what are our parameters? Think about this. I'll talk about one issue in particular. I'll take the Mexican American Studies topic. So, what's the board's role when it comes to Mexican American Studies? Let's define it. What's my role? Let's define it. What's the cabinet's role? Let's define it. What's the principal's role? Let's define it. What's the teacher's role? Let's define it. What's the parent's role? Let's define it. What's the student's role? Let's define it. What's that all mean? What that means is there a one-size means by which you provide empowerment on all topics? No, there's not. What we have to identify are what are those important things that people feel that they should have a say in? What are the important things that people feel they should have voice in? Until we have that conversation, you may say, yeah, I give the site-based team the authority to decide, what professional development to bring in, but maybe that's not what they wanted. Maybe they wanted authority to take a look at something different. And so, in terms of flattening out the hierarchy, we have to identify, and I go back to the strategic plan, what are the big issues and what's each in this room of our roles and the people outside that didn't make it here, what are our roles in making these things happen? Because once we can identify what our roles are, if people want Mexican American Studies back, what is our role as a community? Who's responsible for what part of it? And then let them do their part. And then let's come together and put it together. So there is no such thing as a blanket, here's the structure and here's the format for everything. It's not right to say to a counselor on a campus, hey, I want you to work up a plan to help us, cut the budget. And they say, hey, let's close their school. That's not a decision that should be made as such. But perhaps representatives can come to a larger group and have that conversation. So, again, is there a cookie cutter way? No, there's not. What we have to identify are what are the big topics and what role do people want in resolving the big topics. Because you may want to empower somebody and they give it right back to you and nothing gets done. And you say, oh, look, it failed because I empowered them and they didn't want it. No. There has to be dialogue. And it has to be meaningful. And it has to fit the context. Everything exists within a context. And we have to be realistic about that. Ultimately, who's accountable? I am. And then who's accountable above me? At election time, the board is. We know that. So there are tough decisions that have to be made on occasion by the board or by the superintendent, but then there are those decisions we need to make together. And like I said, there has to be clarity and dialogue as to which ones are which and why. So, I know it sounds like a very broad answer, but to say that, you need 4 people here, and 3 people here, and 2 people here, law lays out what your site-based teams look like. But in terms of the decisions that they want to have a part in, we have to decide what's the work in 5 years and what do we do each year to get there. And then we can talk about what role we have and what level of discretion belongs to each group that's responsible for making the whole thing work. Nothing works in isolation.
And your experience as you've gone through this in other districts, how have you engaged communities, especially parents?
That's a challenge. I'll tell you, if somebody can write a book on how to engage parents, they'd be a millionaire. Like I said, I was in the Louisville Independent School District, which is a very, upper middle class and an upper class school district. And at elementary, you had parental involvement. But guess what? In school districts that were a little more economically depressed, at elementary, you had parental involvement. For whatever reason, right around 7th, 8th grade, no, parental involvement just becomes less and less prevalent. And, you know, in taking a look at our current situation, I'll talk to you about what we're doing in Ector County ISD, and of course, it's all situational. I'm not saying what we're doing there would work here. But we have a PTA Council of Presidents. We have a PTA president for the Council of PTAs, Parent-Teacher Associations. And Malcolm's a good man. And what Malcolm did is Malcolm came up to the principals in a principal meeting, and he said to the principals, at my invitation, he said to the principals, I need 2 or 3 key communicators on each campus. He said that to our 3 high school principals, our middle school principals, and our elementary principals. Give me 3 communicators and bring them next time we meet. And I'll say what we're going to do next. So they did. We packed the room. We packed the room so much we had to find a bigger room. And what we talked about were those things that on those campuses, those principals and parents felt were meaningful to them. And their job was to go out and share that and begin bringing people to the table. One campus said, we need to build a playground. Another campus says, we need to build our literacy library. But it was where parents felt that they could be involved. But I can't say it enough. You have to go to the people and you have to talk to the people. You can't assume you know better than they how to involve them. You got to ask them, what do you want to be involved to do it? And Malcolm did a good job with that. The last step we had is Malcolm talked to the principals and said, what are the big projects for next year? And he went at a separate meeting and asked the parents, thinking, he and I both thought that there would be a schism, that the principals would want one thing, the parents would want another. It actually was the same thing. So the next meeting is about how do we take what the parents want, the principals want, put it together, get an action plan on each campus and make it a focus. And keep our eye on the prize for each campus. And then how can we, central leadership, support it? Then how can Malcolm and the P Council PTA support it? How do we share and learn from each other? Some campuses are a little further along than others. Now, and that's a way, that's one avenue. Y'all know also I've mentioned that you got to go to the places where people are and ask them what they need and what they want to be part of. I got to see a couple of very nice parent rooms in Tyler as well as in Ector County. We set up ESL classes for parents and then computer literacy classes for parents so they could come in and get a Yahoo address for free and learn how to use the internet, right? Put an application together, improve their English language fluency. And we got parents in, and they were taking a part in their education, and their kids were sitting right there with them because, as a Hispanic parent, kids go everywhere with us. I don't know if we don't trust our kids with other people, or we just know or other people don't want our kids. So that's a bad dude. So anyway, there's the child sitting next to the parent using the computer and working and improving themselves, and it sends a very powerful and positive message that my parent believes in education, not because they say it, but because they're doing it. It's always more about what we do first and then what we say next. And so you have to reach out and find out what people need and what void we can fill. But I also believe there's that work of bringing together the 2 or 3 key communicators per campus and saying, hey, tell me what's going on. People listen to you. They know you. Every campus, this is funny, every campus has, the matriarch, la madrinas, they all get together and they all talk. And then they talk to everybody else. Hey, if they're spreading chisme, have them spread something good, Have them talk about the good work that's going on. That's a possibility. They're just as willing to talk about the good stuff as they are about, and you should see what she was learning. They're just as willing to talk about the good stuff too if you give them the information to talk about. And I've seen that way. I've seen that play out as well. So those are some avenues. I'm sure there are 1,000 other ways, but those are the ones that I'm experienced with, familiar with, that I've seen be successful.
Talked about student achievement, HD. Talk a bit about teacher achievement and teacher accountability. Specifically, what are your views about how teachers should be held accountable around things like high-stake testing?
When I came into teaching, I used to see at the end of the year, teachers packing up their room, and I always used to think to myself, his scores must not have been good, or her scores were not good, that's why she's leaving. It was lack of information and it was fear. But it was also because student performance data was used negatively in a lot of cases. It was used, and I was very fortunate. My boss didn't use it negatively when I was a teacher. One of my bosses, who I have a lot of respect for, Steve Brown, he never used data negatively. It was always an opportunity to grow, and I learned a lot from watching him. So my philosophy is very direct and very simple. You know, I'll tell you, I'm not a pay-for-performance guy. I don't believe in that stuff. It makes no sense to me, because when you think about one teacher who has special needs kids, another teacher who has advanced placement or gifted and talented kids, their job is just as hard. One's not easier than the other. So how do you attribute, well, your AP kids just did so great, here's a check, and your special ed kids didn't do that great, you don't get one? I don't think it's about that. When it comes to student performance information, I firmly believe the way that information is used is, first you take a look at the district. What are the things that kids across the district didn't understand? All right, that's a curriculum problem. Let's fix the curriculum. As I mentioned earlier, let's bring in people who did really well there and ask them how they did well, and then let's use that information to fix the curriculum. By campus, you take a look at trends on a campus. The same thing, all right, who got it on our campus or who figured it out on another campus that has similar demographics? How do we take that information and fix it here? By teacher. Let's take a look at the students. If there are more than 4 or 5 students in a class of 21, 22, 23 that didn't get it, all right, well, is it something that was missing in the delivery or the opportunity? Or was it that the student just didn't get it and they needed it a few more times? So I look at student performance information not as a tool to break down, but as a tool to fill gaps and build up. And so in terms of accountability, as long as our principals and our central leadership and our teachers are willing to sit down and look at student performance information as a means to build up, that's what I believe in. As I said, I don't believe people come to work wanting to do a bad job. What you do is you say, hey, look, you know, 5 kids didn't get this. How are you teaching? Well, I'm teaching it like this. All right, well, what might be another way? I don't know. Hey, I know somebody who does. Let's see if we can partner together. Let's see if we can build and grow. I don't believe in the bad kid thing. You know, there are bad kids. I don't believe in that. I believe there are kids who need us more and kids who need us less. Some learn despite us, some learn because of us. There's a data that shows about 26, 27% learn despite us, and the rest need us. They need us tremendously. In terms of accountability, as long as people are willing to sit and work and grow, I think that we need to continue to work together. I mean, teachers aren't falling out of the sky, you know. Hey, pick me, I'm here, I'm ready. No, I think that what we do is we take the people we have and we work to make them the people that we need them to be. But we do it genuinely, we do it humbly, we do it together. I think that as human beings, we know at a point when it's just not working and we say, you know what? You're giving me all the support you could give me and it's not happening, and so, you know, I might do something else. I think people will come to their own conclusion, their own decision at a certain point after they realize that they've been helped as much as we can help them. But it has to be genuine help, not trying to push you out the door under the veil of help. I don't believe in that. You have to be the change you seek in others, and you can't do that stuff. As a young principal, was I foolish enough to do some of those things? Yes, I'll admit I was, as a young principal, foolish enough to try to make life so miserable for people that they left. But that's not the right way. You learn that, and I learned that. It's about, let's help people be successful, and then in the end, they'll be successful, or they'll realize that I need to go and do something different because, I mean, somebody genuinely tried to help me. And that's my philosophy in terms of accountability. It's student performance information. The reason people hate it is because it's been used negatively so long, and it can't be anymore.
A bit of a complex question, maybe a little bit unfair considering how short you've been in Tucson. You may know that our community college, Pima Community College, has been placed on probation by its crediting body. Principal reason being a failure of governance by its board and its prior chancellor. One of the issues, though, that has really created some challenge in our community has been a question around open enrollment and admission standards for the community college. some of the complaints from the board have been that they receive the product, if I can use that word to identify our children, the product coming out of K through 12 is not strong enough to support community college standards. What could you do to put together those issues so that we make sure that the handoffs, if you will, from K through 12 to a community college work?
You know, it's not a critique I haven't heard in other communities. I've heard it everywhere I've been. You know, it's pretty commonplace. It's amazing. There are good solutions. You know, there's, I'll tell you about what we're doing in Ector County. And again, you know, I just tell you this because there are opportunities. Next year will be the first year we have freshman students taking dual credit at University of Texas of the Permian Basin and at Odessa College. Hey, that's bold stuff right there. But we identified kids who could meet the entrance criteria as freshmen. And so therefore we shouldn't deny them the opportunity to take those classes. But what it's going to allow us to do is see the level of rigor firsthand that's being provided. We also have increased our dual credit enrollment from 300 to over 1,000 students this year. And what we have to take a look at, and this was my charge to the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction in Ector County, I don't want our curriculum to work backwards from the state test. I want our curriculum to work backwards from university entrance criteria, community college entrance criteria. Think about the difference in how we design curriculum. If it's about the state test, you know, it's a minimum skills test. I mean, that's what they call the state test, right? I mean, it's a minimum skills test. So if our curriculum is designed backwards from there, we're going to miss things. But if our curriculum is designed backwards from what it takes to get into a university, we're going to catch what you need to know to pass the state test. And so the way you address that is there has to be an honest conversation with people at the university and at the community college, and you got to ask them, tell me what the gaps are. And it has to be a council of practicing teachers, and it has to be a council of practicing professors. What are the gaps? All right, so as a district, let's design our curriculum backwards all the way to kindergarten to make sure that those gaps are filled. So when I'm talking about curriculum design, that's the solution. Because, you know, once you design the curriculum, you got to get it out, and you got to train people on how it works. And then you got to give people the freedom to make it better. But it's it sounds simple. It just takes a lot of work. You got to know what the end in mind is, and you work backwards from there. And right now, if our curriculum's focused on the Arizona State test, then it's not going to get them ready for college. But if it's focused on college entrance criteria, we got a better shot of it. And that's where you start, and then you focus on college graduation criteria, and you work backwards from there. It's through steps that you get there, but you got to be willing to sit down and take the hits and take the critiques from the community college and the university and say, all right, tell me, where are we dropping the ball? But be honest with me and help me. So it's about conversation, but shared solutions.
Easy question, easy answer. Can we have longer summer vacations?
You know, that's an interesting question. You know, I think that when we have to take a look at it, I'll answer that with the previous question. If we think we can cover the curriculum to get kids into college and prepare them from college and career and the military and life, and we can do it in less time, maybe. But I don't know if that's the case. It would be great if we could get longer summer vacations, but when you take a look at the complexity of information and the complexity of knowledge, you know, when you take a look at some successful districts, it's actually an extended year by which you're able to close the gaps for kids who have those gaps. So unfortunately for some, maybe, but I'd have to say that, you know what, if we can take advantage of every day and every hour we have to close kids' gaps so that they can be ready for college, career, military, and life, I think we need to take advantage of that. This agrarian model of it's time to go and harvest the wheat during the summertime makes no sense, because nobody's harvesting the wheat anymore during the summertime. I mean, they're in the big combine if they're doing that. I haven't seen very many wheat fields around here, though. And so I think that we have to take a look at what the gaps are and what our kids need, and we need to take a look at how we can close those gaps. So in the sense of a summer vacation, it's a great question. I know I'm giving an extended answer on it, but I think it's a matter of where we are and what we need to do and the gaps that are there and how we leverage time. So I think the simple answer is no.
At this point in your career, why Tucson, why TUSD, why now?
I kind of spoke to that on the more on the religious side of things, but again, I'll say this. I mean, I truly believe that I'm not here by accident. I believe there's a reason that I'm here. I just do. My experiences, as I laid out to you, match up with many of the challenges that are here. Having been directly over secondary ed, having been a high school principal, middle school, elementary, having worked with bilingual ESL, having worked with DSEG, I actually worked with the Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, and created a diversity definition and a student disbursement plan and a mathematical equation on an Excel spreadsheet that distributes students across the district without using race as the sole factor, as was found to be unconstitutional in Parents Involved v. Seattle in 2005. And it's used as a national model for districts that are trying to disperse students without using race as the sole criteria. I wrote the bones of that thing, and then some Washington, D.C. attorneys from Georgetown helped me make it real pretty and legally defensible. So when I take a look at my experiences, I think it brings me to this point. And there are those crossroads, and you stand where you need to stand, and you are where you need to be. I come in eyes wide open, and I see the myriad of challenges that people say are here. And then I offer you my resume, though it shows I bounce, and I offer you my experience. What I've learned is, if you take advantage of every opportunity every day, and you listen openly, and you're willing to learn, you don't need 30 years to figure something out. If you learn it, you're willing to learn it, even if you spend 30 years trying to figure something out, by the time you're able to implement that, things are going to have changed from what you learned the first year. So to believe that it's a culmination of years as opposed to a culmination of experiences, I don't agree with that. I think it's a culmination of experiences, and I feel that I have that culmination of experiences to be here.
Talk about your experience in Waco, at Waco High School, which was on academic probation per the question, and how that will help you here at TUSD. And the second part of that question, what in your experience brings you the experience to run a high school such as University High School, which is one of the top high schools in the country?
Interesting question. I was asked a question earlier, I think it was Fox News. See, they spin it. There's supposed to be like no spin, right? So I was asked the question, is Tucson Unified too big? And what when I went from a middle school with about 500 kids to a high school with 2,000 kids, I was, I think, 31 or 32, and I was asked, is Waco High too big? No. Because you focus on the individual student. If you focus on all 2,000 students at Waco High as one blob or one mass, you're going to miss it for most. You might hit it for a few. But if you focus on individual students, what you'll find is if you focus on one student who has this need, there are probably 1,000 more like him. If you focus on this student who has this need, there are probably 1,000 more like it. And if your focus is on individual learners, you're going to hit the entire population. Eventually, you're going to hit it. But you have to be willing to focus on individual learners and individual issues as opposed to big perceived, silver bullets. Hey, there are no silver bullets out there. There are no panaceas. You don't chamber that one silver bullet, shoot it, and you kill the ugly werewolf of low performance. At Waco High, what I learned was I had to hire 12 new science teachers. I think I had 15 in total. I had to hire 12 new science teachers because they moved on. I mean, they were in high demand. New principal coming in. They had a really tough year the year before. I remember they had this big brawl in the foyer. They had to call in the city police and bring people out. It was scary. So here I am, 31, 32 years old, going into Waco High School. But it was about believing in the students and believing in the teachers. And it was about working with them to prioritize what we need to accomplish first, next, how we were going to make sure we were moving in that direction. And it all goes back to what I talked about large scale. It's about a plan. But you don't create a plan in isolation of information. You create a plan after you evaluate the situation quantitatively and qualitatively. What do the data say? What do the people say? What are the commonalities? All right, where do we start? And then how do we go from there? If you take a look at any successful organization, they have a plan. And they have processes by which they work that plan. But they're open enough if the processes aren't getting it done to change the processes. Not to say, well, we need to change the people. No, start with the processes first. Will that philosophy help lead a very successful school? Yes, because I don't care how good the school is, there is always room to improve. You know, there's always room to improve. Socrates said it best, the only true knowledge is knowing you know nothing. What that means is information changes. What that means is opportunities present themselves daily. And you have to be willing to open your eyes and open your ears and talk and evaluate and identify those opportunities and pursue them passionately together with a clear plan and means by which to evaluate that plan and its success. In terms of writing small or large individual students, clear plan, unity, cohesiveness, individual and personal accountability, and always the eye on what the goal is. Students first.
What is your strategy for recruiting and retaining outstanding teachers?
How many of you are teachers out here? All right, thank you. So the strategy for retaining and recruiting outstanding teachers is when the teachers in the room have faith and believe that they're working in a great district, and they tell that to other people who are graduating from ASU and University of Arizona. That's the #1 recruiting tool. I don't care how much money you pay, how slick your ad is, how big your billboard is, or how fancy your commercial spot is. If the people in this room say, oh heck, I wish I could get out of here, then you're not recruiting anybody. If the people in this room say, you know what, I have faith and I have belief and things are going and things are working, come and join our team, then people will come and join the team. So it starts here. It starts here. There are board members in the room, and it starts with all of us. We have to say, these are the good things, these are the brutal facts, and here's what we're doing to address the brutal facts. We're not pointing fingers, we're not blaming anybody, we're handling our business moving forward. That's what recruits people, and people want to be part of something that's great. People want to be part of something where they feel there's hope. People want to be part of something that's bigger than them. And that's a fact. We also need to change our philosophy when it comes to, this is a true statement. Our HR department in Ector County used to be called the Human Resource Department. When I think of resources, I think of things on a shelf that you pull off, you know, and then you pitch away. We're not the HR department in Ector County. We are the Human Relations Department because it's about relationships. And we're focusing on, here's my Rick Perry moment, 4 things. Communication, customer service, user-friendliness, and honoring the diversity of our district. That's our focus. We have to hold ourselves accountable to those 4 things in the Human Relations Department in Ector County so that we can bring people in to join the team. But I need my team members out there saying, hey, we're doing good stuff, you gotta come here. Give it a shot. I don't care what you heard, give it a shot. So like I said, I don't care how slick, how fancy, how amazing, Steven Spielberg to produce our spots and come join TUSD ain't going to happen if the people in the room don't believe that what we're doing is good. And they sell the district. At the grocery store, at the Starbucks, at the gas stations, in the hallways when they speak to parents, and then parents speak to other people. And that's a fact.
What is your view on the role of TUSD in adult literacy?
You know what, I kind of addressed that earlier. If we can empower our community by educating our community, I mean, you have to think about it. You've all heard this. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. If we can educate parents and we can provide them opportunities to improve themselves, then they'll improve their children because we've given them a gift and they'll share that gift with their children. You know, I believe that if we can reach out and provide opportunities through partnerships with other entities in the community, maybe the community college, the university, through grad students and undergrad students, and we can provide opportunities for literacy, then let's do that, because that'll make us better, because we're bringing parents in, and while they're there, we can also tell them about how their kids are doing and how they can help their kids. We got to get them in the doors, and if this is an avenue to get them in the doors, and we got to help them improve themselves, because, like I said, education is the civil right of the 21st century, and if we can empower parents, they will empower their children, and they will inform their children, and they will be models for their children.
Returning for home here, can you say a couple of brief words about your views on gun violence and the roles of the schools in dealing with guns in the community?
You know, again, I'm from Texas. I've said that a few times. You can carry a gun in Texas, you know, you got a little license. You know, you can be strap on the 45, right? But guns have no place in school. I don't believe that, you know, people who aren't law enforcement and trained should have guns on campuses. I don't believe in that. I believe in zero tolerance. Now, hey, I'm a right to bear arms kind of guy. I mean, you know, the old man hung the deer after he shot Bambi from my basketball goal at the house as we dressed it, you know. So, you know, it's not that I'm one of these you can't have guns kind of guys. No, I mean, I believe in that. I believe in the right to bear arms, I do. But I don't believe in the right to bear arms on campus if you're not a trained professional. But I'll tell you what I do believe in, that in Ector County ISD, we just invested $700,000 on our police force. We have a police force. I know by statute it's not allowed here. But I have a professional police force. I have 3 guys trained in the FBI Academy. I have guys that are active participants of Odessa SWAT. My police chief is a former police lieutenant for Odessa Police Department, and the guy who supervises him was the former police chief and SWAT captain for Odessa Police Department. They have laptops that are ruggedized, that activate the cameras in an active shooter situation to be able to see where it's going. The radios have GPS if we ever have a campus officer down. We have a campus officer on every secondary campus, and we're hiring 4 new officers to take care of the elementaries. They have a radio in the car, they have a radio on themselves. They're TCLO certified, which is Texas certification for law enforcement officers. They're all seasoned veterans and they work well with kids. I have bilingual officers as well. I have a drug dog that we take out to make sure the drugs aren't on campuses. I have a professional police force, and they're better than any police force in the Permian Basin, in my opinion. They are a professional police force, and I love those guys dearly because they do good work in keeping our kids safe. I believe in that kind of a presence on campus. Those guys, they are a deterrent factor to violence in Ector County ISD. They're professional, they're nice, they're knowledgeable, but they handle business. And people know it, and they're respected. They have good equipment, they wear the Kevlar, they carry a badge, and they're certified, and any law enforcement entity would be honored to have one of my guys on their force. They're that good, and they love kids. By all means, they love kids. So I know that things are different here in Arizona, but I believe that there can be work if we want a safe and secure school environment to where the district should have that same level of support and protection by certified peace officers. I think that's very important. In terms of a critique, that's one of my critiques. I don't understand why districts don't have that authorizing force in Arizona. I think that's very important. And the university and the community colleges can, hospital districts can. Why can't the school district? I think it's needed and it's necessary. And I was honored to find out that the head of security here is a former police chief. So I mean, you got the makings of something really good. I just think that's how I answer guns in school. I think we need the right people with guns in school to discourage the wrong people from showing up with guns in school. But I don't need a gun in school. I just shoot myself.
Well, it's nearing my bedtime, so I think we should bring this to a close. So I'll ask you 2 final questions that you could use in your closing comments. One is if you could share your vision for education in the 21st century, and then tie in why you are the best candidate to run TUSD.
The vision for the 21st century, that's a great question. It's a really great question. If you have an iPhone in the room, flip it over and it says, designed in California, assembled in China. So what? Our role in educating students for the 21st century isn't to educate factory workers. Our role is to educate students who are going to come up with the next thing you didn't know you could live without. And that's a bold vision. That means we really got to get together and get to work on educating our students to be the kinds of people that can create the next microwave oven, the next smartphone. You know, that's our job. How do we inspire learning? I wrote an article with my wife a few years ago, The Politics of Bilingual Education, Illegal Immigration, and the Commodity of a Post-Technological Society. What's that commodity? A post-technological society is where technology becomes commonplace. It's a pencil, or it's like pencil and paper is. Technology becomes commonplace. So what's the commodity of a post-technological society? It's social and intellectual capital. It's building bridges and understanding and creating that next thing that we didn't know we could live without. We couldn't live without. That's a bold vision, and it's very broad. In terms of why I'm the best candidate, I believe that we have great people in this district, and I know a lot of great people across, across the state and nation that I would, if given the opportunity, like to bring in to help us. Some as just external eyes, what you see, and some is there are a couple of vacant positions at the cabinet level to bring in and say, hey, there are no limits unless we limit ourselves. There are only opportunities, not problems. There are solutions waiting to happen, and let's seize those. Let's celebrate the successes. Let's own the challenges, and let's move forward. That's my final statement. Thank you so much for hanging out with us until 9 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock in Texas, so I'm kind of sleepy. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And please give an even louder thanks for the amount of work that Dr. Sanchez did up here tonight.